And I got it. And the red ball's up, Angelo, and we were back again. We've been waiting for this one for a long time, folks out there. We want to welcome you all tonight to the Foul Line with KS and Company. We want to shout out to our sponsors helping us out, the friends of the podcast, Blizzard Technica, and also Rollerblade, and of course, Nick's Boot Fitting. And then, I mean, we've got we got Geoff Krill here from our national team, coach of the adaptive part of the national team, and been on there for a while. We got to put a shout out for Nordica because they're part of the family in the old Technica group. So we'll definitely do that with Geoff here tonight. How you doing, Geoff?
Doing great. Yeah, really psyched to get this going with you guys. So yeah, I've wanted to do this for a while. So pretty excited about it.
Cool. So in Angelo, what's going on down in southwestern PA? I hear you had, 2-3 feet of snow or something down there?
It's dumping like crazy. You wouldn't even believe it. I don't know. I've been skiing on ice for so long. I had to take a couple days off. My knees are like basketballs, and then it got cold, and I know the resorts made a bunch of snow, and I saw some webcam, but I don't know. Might be Photoshop. It's hard to tell. Yeah.
I mean, they were holding up 2 weeks ago when I was down there. I was down to Whitetail, went down to Blue Mountain, both in PA, and they're struggling, but they're still skiing. So hopefully they can hang on and people can get out and rip. So, but it's not as white down there as it is up here. There's a lot of green.
Yeah, we're ready for some white.
Yeah. But hey, Geoff, it's been busy. The kids have been busy, huh? Racing and doing some stuff.
Yeah, it's really been one of those years where it's exciting to see your kids really taking to it and things are really coming together for them as far as, their young race careers between, the club at LRT over at Loon and then just, what they're doing in their middle school too. And sometimes, the high school hasn't had enough people. So my son's been brought up to race high school as a 7th grader, and that's been pretty awesome for him at points. And just, I think, seeing the value in skiing, within a friend group, it's more than just kind of what it's been, when you've been gate training, when you've been younger, and why you're doing drills when some of your other buddies and friends are out, doing jumps and, sleeping in till whatever time. But, now skiing seems to have a lot more value, when it comes to this. And you're seeing, the fruits of some of those years of putting in the time. And it's really cool to see them be excited about it and not be burnt out on it. Like I was saying to you before, my kids are out there. Went to one event, this morning, trained, then went to another one at the local rope tow at the Kank. Like it's rope tow, with all the local kids, and did a race and went back there night skiing tonight and then going to go do a race tomorrow. It's like, you're spending a lot of time on snow, and then there's, but it's the discipline that I love about it too, and having to tune all the time and keep up with that stuff. And I don't know, there's just something that's really cool about skiing when it does force you to be on top of your game to keep it all together. And I mean, I can really speak to that as a disabled guy, and all the gear. Nobody on the national team likes to hang out with me when they're like, you just want me there to schlep my stuff. So, there's a lot of gear when I travel. It's big, you got the sit ski and then you got a ski bag and everything else, so in the wheelchair. And, I will say that when we head out west, the shuttle isn't so excited to see me sitting there on the curb when they pick me up.
Oh man! So how do you get all? I hadn't even thought about that when you're cruising out, because it's I'm thinking skis, and you get your skis, and then you must take more than one, which you can take a pair, and that's 2 because you're on the mono, right? But I mean, still.
I like to take 4. I'll take 4 different types of skis because it's just like taking 2 pairs, right? And then I have a little variety, but yet it's kind of like you just traveling with 2, which is pretty normal. But it gives me a little bit of choices. And of course, I'm always bringing them just in case you snap one or break one or something like that. You can't be without. It's pretty specific to your particular rig and foot size that clips into. And so, I mean, you get fussy kind of about your equipment, I guess.
Yeah. Because I know I was going to ask you a little later in the podcast about your rig. And, but I mean, how do you move that? Like, do you have to pack it up? How do you get that all going?
I used to, David, I used to like wrap it up in like bubble wrap, and it would, this was like a saran wrap type thing that you'd put it in. It was encased and then put it on the plane. But after a while, it was just such a pain trying to travel with all that, the packing stuff. Then I just started putting it on a mountain skateboard, clipping it in just like it goes into a ski, locking it in so it can't release, little cinch strap around the foot of it and through it and around the skateboard. And I just roll it right onto the plane like that. You know what? I mean, when they can see it, they're more likely to take care of it. Plus, I've never seen anything so cool. So they treat it with respect. I find that it actually travels a little bit better that way because they actually can see what it is and what they're dealing with. So, and it's on wheels, so like they don't feel like they've got to hug.
Yeah. Angelo, it's right up your alley, man. It's on the skateboard. You got to love that.
Oh, yeah. So Angelo, I know skateboarding's your thing. So it's on a mountain skateboard. And yeah, I mean, more people comment like, do you ride on that? I'm like, nah, dude, I got a spinal cord injury. I don't need to do that, but I do use it in different places, like going in and out of a gondola, or I can use it around a lodge, because there's sometimes places where, you got to go across pavement, but you can clip out of your ski, clip into the skateboard, and I can push it with my Outriggers, which kind of act like my crutches, and I can go across other surfaces to get into different things like a tram or a gondola or whatever it may be, and then clip out of it, and then they send it back down bottom and kind of work it that way. So it has other uses as well.
That's awesome.
That's cool. Jeez. Because I hadn't even thought of that. That plus the wheelchair. And
I will say that, that's part of the adaptive. It's just the creativity that's surrounded it that is kind of really cool. You have to be kind of creative in the way you approach not only your own disability, but your situation to be able to survive in life and do it well, right? And do it with grace and do it with professionalism, and just to be there is important. So you work hard at those little adaptations to make it work.
And speaking of training and all that, it's you just came back from training a couple weeks ago from out west. You guys were at Vail, I believe. And
some of the nicest snow I've been on this year. So
we saw some of the videos. I saw a few videos coming back. Brent had put a few up. The team training, doing their synchro skis. How was that? And what is your final prep? And I'm curious because I've seen some of the other synchro ski and that. But what are some of the things you're looking forward to and stuff you were working on for you and your part of the team?
And for my team, one of the things that we're really trying to emphasize and to the world, and it really holds true for me, and I think just from adaptive as a message from our nation, is really about independence. And it's something that I wanted to highlight within our demo and within what we do. And in particular, it's about that when we're going to showcase pretty much two bi-skis doing some high-speed crossing, being tethered by two snowboards. Not only that snowboarders are a part of the adaptive, teaching element, but also that they're part of working with SID equipment. In particular, these pieces of bi-ski equipment that we're going to have, doing some high-speed crosses and some really, tight, short turns. And then you'll have me coming down, showing my independent thing and our turns and what that can look like. But we were just really coming together to figure out how we were going to choreograph that. And it's about showing something that's exciting, because that demo on the hill it's really about showcasing our skiing, the high level that it can be at. And then that you can do something really fun and kind of showy at the same time, right? It doesn't just have to be, we're showcasing a bi-ski going down the hill, or we're showcasing the sit ski in its basic form. It's really showing that the performance level that this equipment is at. And how it really incorporates all the fundamentals that we've been striving to talk about for so long, right? How that, good skiing is good skiing, whether you're sitting on that ski or not, or on one leg, whatever it may be, that it all applies. And that's a cool message to bring to the world too. So that's something that's kind of important to us. And I know you were talking about the presentations and things like that. That message holds true with that as well.
Cool. And I know I guarantee you're excited to go to Interski. But is it different? Because is this your first one as the coach versus being on the team, try out, be on the team, or?
This will be my second one as a coach.
Yeah.
Within that. So, I first was on the team in 2008. So yeah, it's seeming like a long journey here for a while, but, I just love everything that, in my, team time so far, what we've accomplished and kind of where it's brought, and the way the whole team's come together too, as a whole, that whole one team thing. I think I can really exemplify that, because I kind of can be that catalyst between all those different teams, right? I'm a sit skier, so I'm an alpine skier, but I'm on one, so I'm a snowboarder, in some ways, and then there's just sort of the different adaptability pieces to it, and the hanging out with the telly guys and the Nords and then cross country, I kind of bridge all those teams all the time and have those conversations, which is a really fun position for me. I love to be able to, really foster those relationships and put adaptive value into all those different disciplines that we have on the team.
Yeah. And how has it evolved? This will be what, the fourth Interski, or I think that you've gone to?
This will be my fourth Interski.
Yeah. So how's it evolved for the adaptive? Do you see a lot of other countries? That's the word I'm looking for tonight, Andrew. I can't even speak today. The other countries bringing a lot of their adaptive folks. Is that part of every team, or no? Or
yeah, it's really interesting in some of the ways, and nothing against other countries. And some of the countries are really dialed into what they're doing there, and I feel from our perspective they're on the right pathway. And then others, it can be. The message they bring is maybe a new piece of equipment that was developed in their country. And it may not even be that much about independence. It's more about, I hate to see all these designs out there that have a handle on them all the time. I think sometimes that drives the wrong message. The whole thing that we work so hard in this country for is really being able to take somebody's abilities, whatever they are, to the best of that and make them as independent and put that to the test so that it doesn't just become access to the mountain with a ride. And there's a time and a place for that. And there's certain disabilities that warrant that and need that. But it's like you can get caught up. It can become too easy, right? If you have something that's an easy way to just access and go out there without, the struggle is important sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. And our best successes come from those little successes and those little struggles and strive towards independence. To me, that's an important message that we as US Adaptive try to bring to interski and keep driving that home. And that's one reason that our team is part of the Alpine and Snowboard and Nordic and Tele teams, because it's so important that it comes from one message from one group, where in some countries, their whole adaptive, it has nothing to do with their Alpine team or their educational body. They're out on their own. They're kind of flying solo. They don't have the benefit of all the membership that we do, working towards one common goal together. And that's different. So to show that we're a part of it, really one team, and that we didn't just bring in an adaptive skier to have that as a demo out on the hill. We're part of that team in every aspect, from all the materials that we produce to the time we train together. It's a true message. And I think that's really important for me to be able to bring. And that's something I've been trying to do year after year after year. And I think that message starts to really sit in with a bunch of those countries too. So I start to see that traction.
And I have to say, I don't know if Angelo has, but I've seen you a couple of times in person. I've seen you ski. I've seen you come down the hill, and it's impressive. So I have to say, there has to be, when you've been at these interskis, you must have other countries, crews come up to you, and people, other delegates asking you about it and asking you about your mono ski and just skiing. Cause if people haven't seen you ski, they need to, and go to some of our Go with the Pro stuff on the website, on the Matrix, to watch it. Cause it's pretty impressive. I mean, it is.
It's to me, I'm just feel so thankful to be able to do what I do, and I think back to my injury and, when I first had my disability, I shouldn't be able to do what I'm able to do on a ski every single day. And it just, you smile. It's like, it allows me to be creative. It allows me to do kind of anything that I want outside of my chair. It's quite a freeing experience. I mean, to me, I feel more comfortable almost in that than I do any place else, in my world, right? Because I can see a bump over here or a jump over there, and I can go off it. Just, I always say what's so cool about skiing is you have this blank white slate in front of you, right? And you can go down it the same trail 1,000 times, and you do it 1,000 different ways every single time you go. You have that artistic ability to paint your picture every single time you go down that. And I love that about it. And that's a pretty freeing thing when you sort of have, what you have going on every day, and that some of the struggles. Gravity's an awesome friend, I'll tell you, when you're in a wheelchair. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Cause I watched some of your skiing, and I watch your, how you use your outriggers, and they are super tools. They're not just holding you upright. You were using them against the snow. You say you got one ski underneath you, but it's like two other skis that you're using.
Right. Well, it's kind of this really cool blend for me. So, and this is the way I've really simplified what I think when I think about outrigger use for myself, because of my level of injury, as it basically at my rib cage, and I don't have any function below that level as far as musculature and whatnot. My arms, let's think of them actually more as legs. So what's really cool about your arms, and when you think about your radius and on the front, I can turn my hands all the way like this, right? And you can turn your legs and your hip sockets all the way across the hill. That's the compliment for me, because I can't do that from my pelvis. It can only turn about maybe this far, right? Yeah. So when this complements me to be able to bring me all the way across the fall line, The other piece of that, when you think about legs, right, is that let's talk long leg, short leg. My ability to flex and extend off one is what allows me, because I don't have the ability to just throw a hip in or use musculature to bring that back. I am using that as a long leg, short leg of flex and extend to move across my ski. So everything that really you think about that you do well with your legs in relationship to good skiing is done in some sort of way with my arms. But but how it relates to what happens with the tool underneath that main ski that is
because Angelo, I'm watching him on some of the videos and looking at the video that went out from Nordica, which was really cool, and had Rob talking about you as the training manager, training coordinator. I'm not sure what the exact title is at Loon. That he thought you're probably the only one in the country that's disabled that is in charge of the training for the able-bodied ski school, maybe in the world. And when I was watching you ski, I'm like, that's the stuff I'm thinking of. Like, he must be able to, as Rob said, you couldn't do a wedge, but there's so many things you do with different parts of your body that look like we do with our legs that you're using with your arms and stuff that you have to be able to. Is that how you relate to some of the staff when they're working on stuff to improve their skiing?
Sure. Rob came over, he goes, I knew you were talking about skiing when I saw you across the hill and your hands were moving like this. That's, so I do a ton in describing things with my hands, but I also, because I can't demonstrate, let's say, things with two skis all the time, I have to be really in tune to what my visual, I guess, acuity to what's going on. And then I have to be able to verbalize it. Right. Oh. The words that I have to use to be able to describe the things that I see that are going on to make them understandable, because I can't always demonstrate. It's a lot easier when you can say, hey, just follow me and do this. Oh, yeah. Just do it like I do. Right. But when you have to actually describe what you're looking for an outcome or how to accomplish it, I think that's really helped me as a teacher. And it's been an amazing challenge for me at times. But to me, it's been the biggest part of the growth within my career, to be able to verbalize things that I can't physically do and then relate it to others. And the truth of the matter is, even when I was working in truly adaptive ski schools, most of the people that I was training were all able-bodied instructors who were helping out people who had disabilities. So it was definitely in my wheelhouse all along. But, it's a skill that I've been working on and really blending into my own skills over the years. So anytime I see something or watch a video of any that you guys might put up around, I'm looking, how does that apply to me? How can I, where does that come from in my body? Or how does that work with somebody who has a different type of disability or a different function level? So you kind of have to put your mind into these creative places sometimes, which I absolutely love that. The creativity that blows me. It's so fun.
And just to let everybody know, why don't you let them know your official title in the Loon Ski and Snowboard School and kind of your role as the trainer? Sure,
I am the training manager for the Loon Mountain Ski and Ride School. So that's what you'll find me out doing every single day. It's a role that it crosses over into a lot of different areas. Working with the Children's Center, working with the Comp and Dev team. And just down to getting everybody certified and just coming up with what is our message as a school. What do we hold as our true values? How are we going to get this job done? And what I will say that what's been incredible about, working with Rob Avere and the Loon Mountain Ski Schools, they've really given me a lot of carte blanche to do some really creative things, some things that maybe aren't always, seen out in the regular. I don't know if you've been over to the mountain and seen some of the snake tech and instead of calling it, the feature-based learning that's so popular out there. Terrain-based learning. I'm sorry. I created really what I call feature-based learning. So where you use all these different features, and they call it Jeff's junkyard a lot of times, but it's taking a lot of recycled materials in and around the mountain that actually force students to get the movement patterns that I desire out of them by putting them through these features. And it works extremely well. And, it can even work for somebody that's nonverbal or can't see, because it's actually there are tracks and whatnot that you have to follow that create inside ski movement, that create turn shape, can get you to narrow a wedge, get you in and out of a wedge, all kinds of things. So there's a lot of creativity that they've allowed me to build in these courses out on the hill. And it's been really fun with my instructors to put it out there every day.
Yeah, 'cause I know quite a few years ago, and I imagine you still use them. I think it's part of Jeff's junkyard, and your feature thing is the old snowmaking hoses,
right? Yeah,
that you filled. I don't know if Angelo's heard about this, And this is really cool, Angelo. When you're here, are you still using those?
Oh yeah. I mean, today we had 2 courses built out there, which, side by side, and so they're basically we're creating are tracks in the snow that you can either straddle or that you can put a ski on the outside and you put it in, like if I was having you make a right turn and there's a snake that was in the shape of it, we call it a snake because it looks like a snow snake, but it's basically a old not fire making, but a fire hose, but it's a snowmaking hose filled with sand. So and it has enough weight once it's filled with sand that it's not going to move. And when you have to turn your right foot against it, and you can do like touch, 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 and you put it in the shape that you desire, you can create patience because you're defining what the turn looks like. And then they go up and they do it again, and they do it better each time because they have a concrete repetition of the same turn over and over again, whether they straddle it or they do it on the outside. Even gone as far as I put some of those old plastic slide boards at transition, which the plastic slide boards are basically ones we got from the Burton Riglet parks that lay flat on the snow, and you put it right at transition. And if they're too big of a wedge, they'll slip out. So they really learn quickly that they need to flatten their skis there, transition and cross it. So you can create all that. And even I have these tires that were painted and done up with Loon logos and whatnot that are on different along the edges of these hoses sometimes. So when you're straddling it, say you've got somebody in a really giant wedge, you can force them by placing it in the right spot at the top of the turn of the transition where they have to actually steer that ski out of the way because you don't want to touch that, right? You get a little narrower, your wedge gets a little smaller, you feel the release and you move on. And so you can do all these things and change it to the needs of the student from moment to moment, which has been really fun for me. I've been working that with a bunch of my guys over the last 7 or 8 years, and it's pretty cool. I mean, it's lovely for to come over and play with it someday because I think it has a lot of merit, and it's something simple that can work in small learning areas as well.
Yeah, and Angelo, you'd love it, man. I saw it. I was over there doing some events quite a few years ago because you've been doing it for a while with the hoses and that, and they were all telling me about it. And I think Sandy took me up there and like, look at this, and we played around a little bit. But it's interesting, Angelo. It's right up your alley, man, for creativity. He's like an artist on the hill.
Well, what's cool about it too is that you can take an instructor who has very limited understanding of the movement patterns, and by placing them in there, they can run students through it. That's sort of an assembly line of putting them through. We had a bunch of international kids over from the UK the other day. And, we had like 75 never evers, and we were just doing this assembly line of running them through it, and the repetition of it got the movements going. And, they were off and on the lift by, the end of the morning. So, which was pretty incredible, the way that it can build these movement patterns into your skiers really quickly without a ton of verbal instruction. And that's the other cool aspect of it. I don't know. I just love being able to create cool things like that. Today, I had one of our guys, Ed Meltzer, he's an adaptive examiner. He got a guy that was having a hard time moving across a ski and I've been playing with this, this hockey stick thing lately. And so I'm like, here, take this hockey stick and just like have the guy move like across a ski, like he's moving towards a puck. It gave him a third point of contact, so he had stability when he moved across, so he could build trust that he wasn't going to fall over. And he was also one of those guys who was kind of edge locked. Well, the second that hockey stick kind of grabbed on the snow a little bit, the blade grabbed a little bit, and you could see that ski start to flatten a little bit. He could build a little bit of trust that it could actually steer, and he started to release it. And next thing you know, he's making turns, and then you could just back it off, take the stick away, and you're starting to make turns and get comfortable. I think it's we get stuck to sometimes trying to build the same progression all the time, and when things don't work, try something different. Instead of trying to like repeat. And I think it's okay to introduce something that breaks a movement pattern to be able to get them freed up to be able to get to where you're trying to go. And we've got to be more open to those things. And this isn't one of the things I've been kind of harping on a lot lately too, is this concept of everyone wants to call them adaptive tools, or some of the things that we use in the adaptive world to help people with, different mobility challenges and whatnot, to be able to ski or to it gets them into a different mode of ability, I guess. We always call them adaptive tools. They're really just teaching aids. And we, as alpine ski instructors, I've been able to bring that stuff over into the alpine world. It's been really helpful in breaking a lot of those patterns that guys struggle with. So, yeah.
No, I think it's brilliant though. And I think the use of the junkyard, that's absolutely brilliant. And as I'm sitting here listening, I'm just thinking like, I have to expect that when people see your equipment, that's what they see. But, and then make assumptions, and I'm sure I have. But then to hear you talk about teaching and working with people, not only are you translating between disabled and able body, but you're translating among all these disciplines too. And the way you describe yourself is kind of like the hub of the team. Little, hands in everybody's pie a little bit to do with the alpine world, but you're on one ski, so you're a little bit like a snowboarder and so on. Like your depth and breadth of your teaching arsenal and your movement analysis arsenal is just amazing. It's really, you're kind of like the great equalizer of all people who slide on snow. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think that, when you break it down to it, that's kind of the simplicity of it. That's what makes it really fun for me, because to have that sort of ability to play in all those worlds, and especially with the team at such a high level, man, that makes it really intriguing for me, and I can feel like I can take a little bit of that here and there, and I kind of can bring it all to one and make it better for everybody, if you will, within all these disciplines.
It's really impressive. And as you were talking a little bit ago, I was thinking about when you were just saying that stuff earlier that I just mentioned. I know a lot of folks struggle with since the pandemic, the family lessons have gotten real popular. And then we see mixed group lesson or mixed discipline lessons, which we didn't always see in our area. Maybe you guys have, but that's kind of new to us, the multi-age thing and the mixed discipline thing. And a lot of folks struggle with it, but I like what you said is just that that's just kind of normal in your world. And you're just a wealth of experience in that regard too.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you started at New England Disabled Sports. That's where you learned how to ski.
Yeah,
at Loon.
Going back a long time ago now. So I was hurt in 1995. So yeah, it was January 29th. They were looking at about the 28-year anniversary, wow, which is crazy, when you think about it. So I've passed my half-life, as we call it, where I've spent more time in a wheelchair than I have, ever walking, which, is kind of a big milestone when you think about it. But yeah, back in those days, it was called the White Mountain Adaptive Snow Sports School. Back then there were WUMAS. Yeah.
So what's your connection now? Because I know for all the years you were teaching with them, but there was the definite connection with the Loon Ski and Snowboard School, and I imagine it's gotten even better. But what's your role there now with the training manager role of the able-bodied school?
Well, as far as New England Disabled Sports,
yeah,
and there are two separate schools. They have their own management staff and their own training program and whatnot, but. I'm a resource over there. You get those guys pop in my office all the time because they're just trying to figure things out, or they're trying to get, another little tidbit on this and that. Even when we're out on the hill and I'm working, in that my role is within the able-bodied world, I'm a resource out there all the time. And I want to be that. I look at myself that way as a resource to any discipline that's out there. And I love that, snowboarders are as comfortable coming to me and asking me questions about that. I have my level 1 in adaptive snowboard and whatnot. I try to kind of get my hand in all those different areas, knowing that enough to be dangerous. But what I just know about movement patterns in the body can be super helpful within that too. So, I try to have my hand in a little bit of everything when it kind of comes to being out on the mountain. I look at myself as a resource for anybody, whether it's within the disability population and working with, their adaptive tools and looking at maybe try how to create or get them to accomplish something. Because sometimes, able-bodied folks aren't thinking about it like what that loss of control might be, or how you need to move to have the skeleton align itself when it doesn't have, and it can't be just forcefully done by muscular control. There's a lot of different ways to kind of look at it. And so much of it is by like shift of weight and putting it in the right place at the right time. It's pretty cool that's how I'm able to ski the way I am. It's because it's like a when and where, and how you align the body to be able to let those angles happen, and then how you can release them, and how you can get, functional tension in your spine to keep pressure over the ski and it doesn't, flop out or roll to the wrong side. There's so much about the accuracy of that is important. And it's taught me a lot over the years, and I've really, tuned into that.
Yeah. Geoff, this is my ignorance. Are there folks riding like on sit snowboards facing the side, or is everybody pretty
there
much
is
facing?
so that there's one that's come out of the Netherlands that's a sit down snowboard, and it's driven with basically like two handles so that you can create twist. So you are able to do that. And it's really, most of its usage has basically been on dry slopes and indoor facilities. The hard part about it is that you always kind of need somebody to help get you to the lift or to push you there. As far as the independence part of it, that's the harder part. Yes, it snowboards sideways and it can get, but it's something you can't stop in the middle of the hill and just hang out and chat with your friends. You know what I mean? It's one of those, you kind of go, because you know how hard it is to balance on your heel edge. So think about that. You were trying to do that and balance with your hands in a seated position. So it has its drawbacks, but it does do what a snowboard does when it's out there doing it. So it's one of those that, yeah, it's super cool in the creativity and how they've engineered it to do what it does. But the part that's hard for me is you lose that independence part, right? That you can't just stop and have a chat and reconvene about what was going on during the lesson, or, talk with your friends, or really hard to get up from it, or, you lose that. At that point, I'm like, you might want to even just consider just the regular sit ski, because you're just going to be able to access the entire mountain environment instead of sort of being limited in and around the snowboard. But who knows where they'll develop it in time to come. But it's cool that it's out there,
Yeah. So there was a cool statement I came upon in some of my research, and it was a statement you made back in 2012, but you probably made it before then, but I know you did it in the video. That's where I heard it. And your quote was, "That's what it does. Skiing saves people." Mm-hmm. And it was really neat. And then to hear you talk about that and how skiing saves people. And I'm just going to leave it to you to chat about that, because it was really cool. Listen to you.
Dave, I can take that statement a lot of different ways and it's a different story for a lot of different people, depending upon where they're coming from and what they expect out of the sport, right? So for a lot of people coming, maybe, they used to ski prior to an injury, right? That it was something that, they loved and they cared about. And now they've had this horrific accident or something's changed in their lives that it's never going to be the same again, right? Or they envision that it's not going to be the same again until they get out there. And all of a sudden, they realize that there's with all the hurdles that you kind of go through when you have a disability in life and all the different ways that you have to approach it. And then you're able to go out there and do something that, quote unquote, feels normal, right? And has a level of possible independence. And you feel that, the energy of the turn, and you feel this, I can conquer a mountain, and then I can ride something that just seems so crazy. I can remember, when I was working in a hotel years ago, and disability skiing wasn't, super popular, that well known. And people would be like, and I was saying, yeah, and I'd talk to them about skiing. They'd be like, you ski? Like, it just always blew people's minds. And it was so cool to be doing something that people thought there was just no possible way that it could even happen. So when I say that it saves people's lives, it really means that it gives them an accomplishment. And this was one of the Disabled Sports USA sayings used years ago, was that if I can do this, I can do anything. Yeah. And once you do that, then you find that you can do something like that just seems so out of the ordinary or so impossible and so independent. And let's face it, you're out conquering a mountain. This is something that a lot of able-bodied people struggle with doing. And then you start to make those turns. I mean, it gets them on the right track, because they leave that mountain with a sense of accomplishment that they can start to take on all the other challenges in their life really well. It can be the difference between them, spend the rest of their life drinking, drugging on a couch somewhere. And I really take it seriously. Like that first lesson to me, when you have somebody that's kind of in that struggle mode of, is this going to be successful? They're really depressed. Maybe their friends just dragged them out there to make them do something like this. It can really, if they don't have a successful lesson, it can really be a turning point in their life. And you have to treat it that's a different level than average student that shows up in front of us, on the mountain every single day. We're not looking at this as maybe their boyfriend or girlfriend wanted to learn how to ski so they could have a partner out there with them. But this is a different level to that, right? It might mean that they can't ever ski with their kids again, or they give up on it. And they feel like that they can't recreate with their family anymore. There's just so many different levels to that and the importance of it. That's why, I really treat that first lesson and want successes. They need to be there, right? You can't screw it up. To me, in mind, that's a lot of pressure to put on an instructor, isn't it?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's the importance of it. You really want to dial into where you can bring somebody and what it might mean. It's not just a ski lesson, right? It's the ability to change and not save somebody's life necessarily all the time, but to change their life in a really positive direction, to get them on the right path, to get them in the right direction. That sense of accomplishment that it brings about, it's kind of mind blowing, and that's what keeps me excited about it all the time. I love seeing those success stories, and they don't always happen. But when you get them and you see what can happen to people who know that they were like, that was that one turning point for me. That was the point that just made it. Like I didn't think I'd ever be able to be back out there with my kids again. I wouldn't be able to ski. And once they do it, man, that's the addiction for me. That's why I love it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, Angela and I love skiing by far. We all three of us, I know, and so many of us do love to teach and love when that smile comes on the face, whether it's a 4-year-old or 55 or 60 or 70 or whatever age. It's just so cool when they accomplish something out there. But like you said, it's so important, kind of the world you've been in, the adaptive world, that it can change so much more. I mean, you talk about in the past in some videos of how, and I've heard some of the students that you've had talk about, there was one wounded warrior that was talking about how never thought they'd be able to do anything other than be in the wheelchair. And he was out skiing on the hill, and it literally brought back their life to him. I mean, did you ever think when you started learning how to ski yourself again, when was it that you realized some of the impact you've had on some of these people that are amazing, even outside of skiing? I know you've talked about how you have to help them. Sometimes it's figuring out stuff in their car or their house that you're talking about to adapt more than just teaching them how to ski.
Yeah, I mean, that is it. You really become sort of this life coach in a lot of ways, or a resource to them, because once they see all these different ways to adapt, and they see the people that are out there living the life, right? Living, whether it's the skiing lifestyle or just a quote unquote as normal a life as possible, the family, the kids, driving your car, just making it work. Right. And they want to learn from you, not just how to ski. They want to learn how to live a more normal life, if you will, sometimes, or a life that's better, that can be a little bit easier. They want to learn the tricks of the trade. They want to learn all these little things that just give them a little bit more sense of a good life, and I love being able to be more than just a ski teacher. I love being able to be that other resource on a lot of different things, whatever it may be. That is the passionate part about the adaptive thing within skiing, is that it transcends into a lot of different people's lives on lots of different levels. That's why the relationships are so strong. And that's why the instructors are so passionate about what they do too.
Yeah. And that's what I was, with our learning connection model and the people skills being so much a part of it. And trust. You have things that you have to overcome with people that they bring, of like thinking they can never do this. And some of the stuff that you help them adapt to make it happen is amazing. That's the epitome, I think, of connecting with people and helping them through. But it's got to be tough at times trying to figure out how to make this work. You might have to be so creative at times. I think. Yeah.
The learning connection model really is adaptive on steroids. That's the part I think that so many of our instructors are incredible at. They really are. When you talk about the people and teaching skills, that you mentioned the number one there, building a relationship built on trust, right? You take somebody who's been injured. They know that, they fall and they hurt their shoulder. You know what that means to somebody in a wheelchair? That means they might have to go to a nursing home. They may not be able to dress themselves in the morning. They may not be able to drive home. They may not be able to work. It's not just, an injured leg. This is something that impacts their life on lots of different levels. And from independence to, it's a pretty scary thing. So think about the anxiety levels that may bring about within people. That just fear of being hurt. I was hurt this way before. I don't want to be hurt again. I can't go through that. I can't do that. And then you're asking them to do something really pretty extracurricular, like take on a mountain and learn how to ski, right? So creating that safe environment for them and the trust that you build, like, this is okay. We're going to take it low and slow, and just building that how we're going to do this. And it's not just like fake it till you make it, this is really, you have to be sincere, and you have to read into the person's mindset and where they're coming from to be able to get to that good teachable moments for them to be able to do what you're actually asking them to do. And I think it's that way for anybody. It's just in the adaptive world, there's some larger consequences sometimes that are out there.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, Angelo, this one has been, how long have we talked about, at some point we got to have Geoff on, and it hasn't happened. Some of it, I'll admit that it's like, I wanted to make sure I had the right questions. I was thinking about all the things that you've accomplished and seeing you ski on the hill. And for me, it was like, God, don't screw this one up. Because it's amazing to me, how inspirational you are. Like, I watch you ski or listen to you talk or when you're working with people, just the times I see you at training or different places we're together. Cause I know Adaptive was with us at training this year and has been in the past at times. What's inspirational to you? You yourself are inspirational to me. It's amazing to watch, and the things you do and how you talk about it so easily that you're able to connect with people and adapt, which I see you do. But like, what's inspirational to you?
I think something that would be inspirational is I just love seeing people have little successes, that they are moving forward all the time and whatever it is. And that has nothing to do with teaching skiing or whatever, that you just see that people are moving forward in the right direction in their lives. And if you can be a part of that, for me, that's inspirational to me. I love seeing that, or seeing somebody who comes from a really bad place, maybe, and then all of a sudden they start to accomplish so much just from the simple things like being involved in our sport, and that's not just it from I'm involved in so many different sports really when it comes to adaptive, whether it's water skiing or cycling and, fishing and downhill mountain biking and all these things. But I just love seeing where people evolve from sport. That always inspires me a little bit, or when they're able to come up with some new adaptive piece that allows them to move in a better way. That's the engineering behind it starts to get kind of cool for me. That's the really fun stuff, right? You see so many cool things that are out there. Somebody comes up with a new concept or a new idea, and that they're just not stuck in a rut. That stuff bores me a little bit. I like to see some creativity out there. That inspires me to create.
He pushes me, Angelo, every single time I think I hear about Geoff, or I see him, or I talk to Sandy over there, or I see Rob. There's always something, or Evan, there's something that, we were talking to Geoff about this the other day, and he's thinking about this new idea. And I'm like, damn, man, I got to just keep coming up with stuff, because it's like, I'm like, you feel like you're light years behind, because it's amazing, some of the creativity, but it does inspire me to go like, what can I do better? Because it's like, you never stop, Geoff. It's really awesome, Angelo, to see. Yeah,
I think it's because, in the world of like your own journey, within, the wheelchair journey, you're constantly having to create the equipment or a way to experience something that, it doesn't quite fit right into everything that's right there in the world. So you're always looking at that different way around the side to navigate it, to be able to, facilitate the experiences that you want to enjoy. So I think that's where the creativity comes from. In my head, for me, it's always just trying to find what's the best way that I can do this to keep enjoying life the way I want to, right? Makes it a little simpler, a little easier. Those are the things I'm looking for all the time. It's not the shortcuts. It's just, these are the things that just make life's hard in a wheelchair. There's no doubt about it. Right. But when you find those little things that just make it a little simpler, a little bit easier, make day-to-day life a little faster, save a little bit of time and make it more efficient. And it's a game changer. And it is for a lot of people.
It seems like that skill set compounds too, because once you figure it out, and I'm assuming, but once you figure out, a solution to a problem for the chair itself, and you have that success, then any obstacle just becomes a matter of how to solve it. That's terrific, not trapped in a box. That actually sounds, quite freeing to think like that.
Yeah, I never thought about it quite that way, Angel, but it is, I think it's just the way you're forced to be that way, right? Mm-hmm. It's that you have to, there's the post-traumatic growth concept that's sometimes out there after disability, right? That which makes you struggle, makes you stronger. And we can speak that on a lot of different levels. But, within injury, that post-traumatic growth mindset is important. It's a great way to take on sort of your life and all your life goals, if you will, which comes out of your tragedies and your failures. You can take that in the wrong way, and you can, not do anything with it. But if you can continue to try to thrive from those little setbacks, you become so much stronger and so much better at what you do.
It's like the opposite of if all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. But you have a sit ski and you understand alpine skis and snowboard and cross country and downhill mountain biking and fishing. And then, why stop there? Just
you brought up the hammer, which kind of, I use this analogy a lot for myself when it comes to particular tools, especially in the adaptive realm, is that, a hammer is an amazing tool, right? You can build a house with it. You can do so many creative, wonderful things that you can build, but you can also tear a house down with it, right? You can ruin a lot of things with it. So it's all about these tools that we have, but it's also how they're used and implemented. And that's an important thing for me in life, is that we can provide, in adaptive and skiing, right? I can get anybody to ski down the hill in some way, shape, form with the equipment that's out there. But am I doing it in the right way? Am I doing it where they're exploring their most independence that they can have? Are they getting the most out of their bodies, or what they're capable of that's going to give them the most excitement in their lives, and also give them the credit for what they're capable of? Right? Because I could just take somebody like myself who just had a recent injury, take them to the top of the mountain, give them a ride around, and they saw a beautiful view and they saw that, but they didn't develop the love for a sport. They didn't learn how to ski. I think that's always important to remember, that, we need to explore what the capabilities are from that, and not use these amazing tools that we have in the wrong way.
Yeah. And you've learned how to ski twice. Because you had your accident in 1995, but you had skied for many years before that, from when you were young.
My dad worked for Wonder Bread and Hostess Cake growing up, so we always had Twinkies and cupcakes and gave those out for Halloween and whatnot. So we moved around a lot. As a kid, I was born in Ohio, then we moved to Tennessee, lived up in Germantown, Tennessee, outside of Memphis for a little while. So then we moved to Detroit, Michigan. Lived there for a little bit, and then moved to Georgia, and I was there for 3 years. But pretty much I started to ski, besides cross country ski, which I'd done a bit when I was younger in Michigan and visiting family. But I didn't really learn to downhill ski till I was in 7th grade. And that was in Connecticut. And from there, so I loved skiing, do all the weekend trips, or the mountain I forget what it's called now, but it was called Big Birch at the time. And down there in the Brewster area of Connecticut. But we skied, a couple times a week. We'd go to the night skiing. And the reality is I wasn't a great skier when I was younger. I learned to ski, and I went to the lessons with the group, and the lessons to me at that time were terrible. How a lot of those like school group lessons are, where they pack them in with, 25 kids in a group. And I think I still attribute a lot of the way I want to see lessons run from those experiences. And I think there's a lot of people maybe that came from my generation that they don't want to see their kids experience what we kind of all went through with some of these recreational programs at one time. There was a better way to do it, they were just trying to pack tons of kids in, and, they had some young high school kid who trying to facilitate it, who had no idea about anything within it. And you just didn't want to be any part of it. Yeah. So I learned to ski, and I loved it. I have pictures of me and doing back scratchers of the 205 and the K2 VO slalom was my baby back then. And, the Mayer brothers were inspiring me. And of course, Glenn Plake and all those guys, that was kind of my thing. I loved being able to do a Daffy Twister spread. I could do stuff well. I was great in the air. But when it came down to really being a technically fundamental skier, I was a hack, I thought I knew what I was doing. And I took that same type of approach when I first learned how to sit ski then too. I was trying to do things that, forcing the ski, trying to jam the ski, and also it was straight ski. So you did a little bit more stepping and things like that. But I was trying to do all these things. I didn't really understand the finite movements of how you moved across the ski and what the flat ski transition was. And I would say a lot of people, when they were teaching me how to ski, didn't really understand that either. They didn't, it was kind of I don't know if any of you went on a snowboard in the early days and you just went out and did it, right? Nobody was there teaching you, right? We took it out, you went up on the hill, you got the boots, and they were probably Sorels with snowboard, with ski boot liners inside of them that you put on, and you just went up on the hill and you beat yourself up till you learned how to do it. And that's what I kind of felt like in my first sit ski lessons. And because of that, I really worked hard. We lost a lot of good people along the way that just didn't survive that stuff. And you still do to this day if it's not done the right way, because they get so beat up from the fall. And because it's either the verbiage isn't correct, the teaching approach wasn't correct, the setup wasn't correct. That's what I mean. The importance of that, you can really lose a lot of people along the way if you don't. So, I mean, I did have to learn how to ski twice, but I respected the differences between the two over the years, and having known the difference between, just being able to go out and muscle it and feel it and make it happen. And then really when you took a real technical approach and just understanding the how little movement it really takes to turn a ski well, right? Yeah. It's a much more finite minutia to it than, God, it's like that much and you're on edge, and you're turning, instead of man versus metal, which a lot of, like new sit skiers or people in the disability world, they think because they're disabled, they're going to have to come out and like muscle this piece of metal for some reason. And they try too much. They're trying to do too much with it, and they don't understand how finite those movements are to get it to work. So yeah, that was me. I was just, I was young, 25 years old, and I was going to win over this disability, and I was going to crush that sit ski. Nope. And it crushed me for about a week and a half, but I was stubborn and I got through it. And, once you figured it out, and then it was kind of like, and you felt those first couple turns, and kind of the rest was history. And I just knew that I wanted to do that. I wanted to give that back to other people and I saw that I could start to teach people, and it just sort of grew into a passion for me, still to this day. I mean, can't say enough about it.
So my wife wants to know, because she asked me tonight, she knew I was coming on with you, and she said, what other sports did he do when he was younger other than skiing? Was he into competitive sports? Because the drive you have, it's like you're saying, that sit ski wasn't going to beat me. I mean, there's a competitive, there was never a point. I mean, you talk about your injury. I've heard you talk about it when you were laying on the cank on Bare Notch Road and you hit that guardrail in the chest, and you were already thinking about, I'm still going to be the best I can be. Where does that come from?
I can't tell you. I'd had a few injuries, growing up. I had broken legs. Playing soccer was one of my main sports. And pretty much I played up through college. I played at Southern New Hampshire University. It used to be New Hampshire College. Played some tremendous players from around the world down there. So, and I was a goalkeeper. So soccer was a big part of my world all the way through that time, even, came up here, and I'm to this day, believe it or not, guys, I'm still a soccer coach. So I still coach it. It's another thing I'm mixing to my world. But yeah, cool. I coach the high school team for the girls here with a couple other people. So I do that as much as I can. And in particular, my specialty is goalkeeping, which that's what I do. So yeah, and I help out with all the teams here locally as much as I can. So I'm still using that skill set that I put a lot of time and energy into. Like I can't show a wedge, but I can still teach you how to dive, and I can still teach you how to play soccer well, even though I'm not using my legs. So
and is that battle, that competitiveness, is it just because, I mean, I know I use it because I'm pretty competitive, but it's like, can I get this person to be able to do this? How can I get them to ski that bump run? I mean, you must have that. Like, how can I make this work for them? I'm not going to let this beat me. I'm going to figure out a way and win this challenge to be able to help them do this. I mean, that's got to be some of your drive, is it?
It is. I don't like failure that way. Yeah. I mean, I don't think any of us do. I mean, it's just, I think it's just important to me. I like to see those successes. Those are the things that, like you said, what inspires me to do it. I love to see those successes. I love to see people conquer and be better than they thought they possibly could be at something. And I think that's for any of us, right? We love seeing that smile when all of a sudden it's clicking, it's coming, you see all the pieces coming together. I mean, that whole competitive nature goes a long ways back with me for sure. It does. I mean, I love sports. Sports always been fun. I was all the way through, I was a Boy Scout. I was an Eagle Scout and wanted to be the best at that too. was a time I was thinking about going to West Point, and then things were written around soccer happened. I wanted to go to college and play there. And that was amazing to be able to go that and have that be a part of my life. And then, this skiing thing happened, and skiing gave me another sports outlet right there from the get-go. And I saw, it was something that I loved and I was pretty passionate about anyways. But then to be able to see that there was a pathway. Everybody, of course, the second you make the first turn to sit ski, they want you to be a Paralympian and whatnot. And I looked at that for a while, right? But I also wanted some stability in my life. I wanted a career where I wasn't living out of a bag for the next, 15, 20 years, because I didn't want to all of a sudden be my age now, 52 years old, and not have accomplished all the things that I've been able to, right? To build a career around it and touch all those lives and, and have a family. And, those were things that were important to me. So I saw this route through education, and that I could do something like skiing that I was absolutely so passionate about and make it something that I could make a career around. And I'm pretty happy about it to this day. It's been working out for me.
Yeah, and I guarantee your mono ski and your rig has evolved. As you said, it wasn't the best when you started. I mean, what's the technology in it now, and how's it even evolved the last 5 or 10? What's it like now? How do you put it together? What are the adaptations you've made for you personally?
I mean, so much for me, it's in the connectivity of the seating. As important as the boot is for you, and we've said that for years, right? Your ability you got to start with a flat ski, right? So how do you, with, different body types and different, different disabilities, there's a lot of times where you can be awkward. You've got one butt cheek that's a little bit bigger than another because of atrophy or whatever. There's a variety of reasons, right? You have spinal fusions. You're creating this seat that gives you the most connectivity to the ski. And then when you move, it reacts to what's happening down below on the ski. But it all starts with trying to get the flattest platform that you can get. And you really take a lot from boot technology when you think about it. You can do a custom molded boot, right? But does that mean that it's flat, or you get a custom orthotic? You probably had a custom orthotic that you had to then tweak a little bit to get it to be flat so that your ski felt even as you move across it left to right. So just because it's form fit to you doesn't always mean that it's 100% dialed in until you get out on the snow and you feel those sort of intricacies. So, I mean, I'm constantly playing with the leveling and, where my pelvis is in relationship to that ski. Some of the coolest things, if I'm going to demonstrate with my hand here, if you think about this as pelvis, right? You got the two heads of your femurs, my thumb and my pinky, right? And these are your two sit bones here. So let's think about this. If I was just sitting in a seat and it only was supported on those two sit bones, that's like skiing with your legs together. What they've done with a lot of the seating now is to build it up so that it supports the two heads of those femurs, so that when I move or transition across the ski, look how much larger my lever is that I can power over the edge. So that's just inside the seating there, providing a better lever to move across that ski. That's really cool within this setup. Then there's sort of the ab parts of it. What if you need some kind of there's some really cool shoulder straps that are out there for really high level disabilities that allow movement, and they pull from one side. They act like tendons and false tendons. They give you support so you can move laterally or diagonally to the corners of your boot or of your seat or your bucket there. I mean, the seating is kind of where it starts, right, as far as movement. But then when you want to talk about the real physical ability, because the machine has to take the place of your knees, right? That shock also has to be as smart as your legs are. When we're talking about rebound and compression damage, any of you guys that get really geeked out on, mountain bike shocks and things like that, you've got the high and low speed compression, and you can read manuals and spend all this time playing with shocks and the way that that's going to relate to the way you move. It's also the way that the suspension itself moves. We're really trying to mimic if you watch any high-end World Cup skiers and the way that it moves fore aft, so that it moves forward at the beginning and then down and back towards the tail. Because that whole idea of, moving along the length of the ski, just as important, right? Just as important. And some of the earlier sit skis didn't have that kind of motion. They kind of put a shock straight underneath it and said, well, at least it moves. In fact, the first sit ski was a leaf spring pretty much underneath it looked like a motorcycle sidecar, like bathtub type thing, So, I mean, the technology has just come so far. They're looking at what's going on in the best skiers in the world and trying to mimic suspension in the way that body moves in the long, but also then managing that with how the shock technology works. Hopefully that wasn't too geeky on that.
No, that's what I wanted. Angelo, tell you, I love that geeky stuff. Go ahead, Angelo.
Do you use the same or work with the same company for your skis and your bikes, or are they different companies that build those
all
things?
Different companies, and they're all small companies, that, making it work. And it's, of course it's expensive stuff that's out there, the customization that's involved in it all. Unfortunately, there's some great organizations out there that help, in getting grants that we all kind of have to use to try to get, you're building this quiver of athletic equipment all the time. You might go out and change your shoes for the next sport you're trying, and we got to go out and buy a $6,000 or, $15,000 piece of equipment to be able to do that. So that's hard, right? But it's important. But those are some of the most valuable things. I have a mountain bike, and I look at that mountain bike. It's amazing to be able to go rip around in the woods and do all kinds of cool things with it and jump off this and that. But at the same time, it's an accessibility tool. The fact that I could go walk in the woods with my kids or take dog in the woods or go to some, a national park and go on a trail instead of it being trying to push my wheelchair through it. It just gives me more access. I can use that tool for more than just sport. Right. And I'll sometimes use even my sit ski that way. Sometimes if I had to go out in a field somewhere or watch a match that I wasn't even skiing at, I can go out and push across a field with that. So, it's these are important little pieces of equipment to your life, or the wholeness of it all.
Yeah, I think the geekiness of it is awesome because when you're talking about, fore aft and looking at what knees do, and it's really getting into the dynamics of how you can have the apparatus, the sit ski and all the pieces to it work to do the things you want with the ski. And that's my other question. It's like, when you thought about this, I know you've thought about this for a long time. You've been working on this since 95. you were back skiing 10 months after you were injured in 95, back on the snow. And since then, it's like you're driven and to get better and to get the equipment better. When you went to Nordica, was it because specific things with the ski? Was the company working with you? What do you get from the Nordica skis and that help you?
What it is for me is I love the durability of the equipment. I always say, if it can handle what I'm putting on it on one ski, that's a good ski for me. And it's a good ski for a lot of people. And I love the durability aspect of it. When I hear, 2 sheets of titanium wood core or I'm kind of like, whoa, that's it, and they're trying to build a little bit stiffer, or somebody says, that's a little bit stiffer for me. But I'm also looking for the versatility, of the equipment as well. I think, a lot of people ask me what's the best ski to be on? Depends upon the conditions of the day. We're all getting like golfers and picking the right, thing. It's kind of crazy when I even think back to it, a bunch of years. You kind of picked 2 skis kind of that you had. Now I feel a little bit spoiled in what I would pick. But, for especially, this year, it's just, I'm skiing on something that just lets me get through all the weird conditions that we've had here in the East Coast this year, trying to make it the most versatile ski possible, But, Nordica has been great for me from the aspect that they're also willing to work with me, help me kind of push some of the design ideas that I have in and around skis. So, you'll take a Nordica Enforcer, one of the most popular skis sort of out there in the last few years, super durable, really high end. But what I take to that ski is I actually take a marker piston plate, and I actually mount that. And nobody puts plates on their all mountain skis for the most part, right? You probably never have seen that. So I take a race plate off of what you get on your GS ski, and I put that onto my all mountain skis because I like the interface. I like the extra stiffness that it brings about. But for me, it's also about. So what tends to happen with the sit ski, there's so much power with that foot and when you're driving that ski, that if you just have those screw heads in the top sheets of most normal skis, there's a lot of potential to tear out of it. Now, what's nice about why I put race plates on those, because you have that flexing motion of the race plate on top of it. So you're taking the pressure off of all those hard mounted screw heads, and it slides on tracks then. So I have a lot less tear outs than I used to years ago by playing with all these different plates on any type of ski that I use. In fact, even if a ski that I'm using comes with a system plate, I rip that system plate off and I put a true race plate on top of it so that I'm getting that kind of performance, because you would just tear those other ones out. They don't have the same kind of mobility and movement, right? So, I mean, those are just some of the things that they're always working with me with, and also then giving me access to some of the really cool World Cup plates that they can have some incredible bend underfoot, because that's one of the things in sit ski that foot is so rigid, being it's a hardened piece of aluminum. How can you get better bend underfoot? So we play with a lot of things in relationship to that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
And it's even like working with the tunes. There's a lot of if you like the geeky stuff, we can get into.
Yeah. What are you tuning like? Because we asked Rogan, we're going to ask you.
All right. So the way that I like to tune, I tune to a person's disability, and it's all based upon how much function they have. If they have muscle weakness or they have the inability to power to move efficiently over the ski, where you would say a 2-degree base bevel is kind of severe, right? But I think of it more like a boat. I want you to be able to move before that edge engages so that it's not too grippy. And wants to throw them where they don't have muscle. They can use their body weight and the shift of that roll to move inside to get to the edge to get power over it. And that's, and I've even played with a bunch of feathered base bevels with some tuners that I've worked with for the years, where you're going from, especially when you start to get into fatter skis in particular, right? I'll do 3 degree on a really fat ski. Maybe it's 110, underfoot. I'll go to a 3 degree towards the tip and feather it back to 2, maybe, and then 1.75 underfoot, and then back out to 3 at the tail, so that it allows for a little bit more pivotability to it. And it won't get caught up at the tip. It'll allow you that with that thicker ski or wider ski to be able to roll over a little easier, and then progressively engage throughout. So I don't know. Is that geeky enough for you on that?
It's good. It's good. I think people like that because it shows how much it gets into, not just, that, they got to do, we got ropes and we got this and we got a ski, and it's really getting into how technical it is. And I think it has got there. I mean, it was neat. I know as all the disciplines for PSIA and AASI were going through the new standards and going through our fundamentals, they were like, well, where's the adaptive part? And you're like, from what I heard, it's like, well, I've got to wait till everybody's done, because then you just adapt to those fundamentals and those things. So it's neat to me, all the technical stuff. Yeah.
And there was a great, one of the best statements that ever came out within that was David Oliver. And you guys all know Dio out there. And one of the things it was coming up with him is like, you know what? If you can't do it, switch. It's not a fundamental. And he goes, if Krill can't do it, it's not a fundamental. So and that's really the truth, because if a ski is a ski, no matter what, the way that you need to enact forces upon it and what you need to do to it to turn, right? It doesn't matter what it's on. Yeah. It really needed to have those same things. And to make a ski do what it's supposed to do, you got to figure a way to get it to do it. Yeah. So, I mean, our fundamentals don't change because I'm in a sit ski, right? Yeah. They just don't. You still need to make that tool work the same way. Otherwise, it doesn't work the same, right? I mean, we're still looking for those most efficient movements. Yeah. And I think the geeky stuff, Angelo, is what people need to think about, not necessarily just to get that geeky, but to try to be creative to what things can we change to make things happen? How do I get creative to make somebody move? How do I, just what you said, how do I get creative to get them to use the tool? It's something I'd love to just, kind of just make as a statement within this is that, you don't have to complicate it by saying that it's adaptive. The people, I can take either of you guys and make you into the best adaptive instructor just from your knowledge of what you know about the sport, because you have that knowledge. And then when you start to relate it to the different ways that you have to move, you're so far ahead of the game, instead of coming from the aspect of where you just got into adaptive and started playing with equipment or applying it to the person and putting it on and then trying to make it work, but without that pushing it towards what you were trying to accomplish fundamentally. That's where the win happens. And that's why, we've, that I've pushed so hard. And I think a lot of other people see where we're moving with this is that everybody, before you get into adaptive, that every instructor in alpine or snowboard eventually they'll get their certification and their knowledge base at the instructor level, right? Pure instructor level of understanding the sport before they get to move into a specialty or an area of adaptive or freestyle or children's or whatever it may be, or senior, right? You have to understand the sport first to be able to do those other parts really well. And I think that's where our organization is going to right now. And we're going to reap the benefits of that in so many ways, because and not only is it going to bring us all closer together, and that's the alignment project, but it's going to allow adaptive to be so much stronger in the future, and I'm excited about what that brings about in the next, few years.
But I would add to that. I agree. You have to know the sport and how the gear work. And then I remember a conversation that you and Keith Rodney and I had, Geoff, at Academy last year, late night conversation about how, understanding how the human body's designed to move. And then we all make adaptations based on which gear we're standing on at the easiest level. You could have a completely able-bodied person on a pair of alpine skis or a pair of telemark skis, and you have to adapt your movements to work that gear. And then you just run up the spectrum, maybe at the least severe case, you have a person with muscular tightness on one side of their body that impacts the way they're moving, and run it the whole way through major disabilities. Yeah. But if you've got the base understanding of how a ski works or a snowboard and how the body works, and then piece that together for the right way for the person in front of you. And that's
it's funny. I was on a clinic the other day, and I kind of went around the group, and it was one of those groups where everybody had a thing going on. I mean, this is your regular alpine morning clinic that you take out, and I'm like, God, you've got a fused ankle, you've got a fused back, you've got 2 new knees. This other person had something else going on. I'm like you guys just filled the handicap parking lot, and you're not even a part of that world, and it was pretty funny. And of course you're adapting all the things that we're working on. And I think that's the way you got to approach any lesson, right? There's more differences out there when people come to you in a lesson group, or the folks that you're working with in your clinics, that you need to start to look into what are the little differences and why or how you can help them be better accomplishing those movements that you keep preaching to them. Because it's, there's real and ideal, as we always talk about, right? And, and you're always having to try to figure out how to get there. Yeah. So we need to be more open to those kind of things. Because we know all of our clientele and most of the instructors that we work with, and also the people coming to us to be taught by us, have a lot of these same situations, and we need to be able to work with them and be more open to how to do that instead of just doing the same thing like you said before.
Yeah. So you go from winter to summer, which I think is when most of the time happens in the Eastern adaptive sports, which you founded. And you do things like take people fishing, you teach them how to mountain bike, road bike, and downhill bike. And I know you're big, and I haven't seen you, but I want to, because I know that people have talked about some of the downhill biking you've done and some of the places you rode downhill. Obviously you rode a bike before you got injured. And how quick did you get back into biking like you did skiing? Was it right away, right after skiing, man, you were figuring out bikes to go riding?
So I saw, when I was injured, I was in the hospital. I saw this a 4-wheel off-road downhill wheelchair mountain bike while I was in the rehab hospitals, in this magazine called Sports and Spokes. And my truck at the time was a Standard, and I'm like, I needed to get rid of that, so I sold it and I put an order in on this mountain bike. And these days it didn't have any pedals; it's just a coaster, 4 wheels, suspension, and you take it up on a chairlift and go. But I really looked at it as a way that I'd be able to get out to fishing holes and get off the beaten path and get back into the woods or go camping and just enjoy the mountains that I love up here in New Hampshire so much. And so that was my mindset behind it. But the next thing you know, I brought it over to Mount Snow, and I was racing in the Norba Cup. And next thing you know, I was on the wheelchair racing team. I got to go to Japan 6 times and race over there, and came to Ichiban. And I mean, I got to do a lot of really cool things with it too, so it sort of became another like summer aspect of skiing for me. But I actually ordered that before I got my first sit ski. Now, because it was, I needed to order it. I knew it was going to take 6 months to get. And then I started skiing like soon after that. And then, of course, I had to figure a way to try to buy my first sit ski. And my friends all in town, they ran basically a big party at one of the Woodstock station, and did an auction. And next thing you know, I was getting a sit ski, and, I was starting to get this equipment to like get my life back, and which was really cool. But, the biking thing is a whole nother, that's a whole other freedom to me. And it's one of those other things. It's the same thing. I can go out and do long century rides, and I go over to Vermont and do the Kelly brush ride. And they do a lot of great grant work for people with disabilities, and, and getting them equipment, in particular spinal cord injuries. And when you go over and you do a 100-mile ride, right? That's cool. And it like sounds amazing. But you know what? The best part was like that I could actually ride a bike with my kids when they were little, and I could ride around the parking lot with them, like you can do. And it was the same thing with skiing. Those are the moments that, when I was working on the magic carpet with them and my wife, I mean, with all the cool stuff I've had in my sports careers of doing neat stuff and, ascents up mountains or whatever it may be, to be able to break it down, or for anybody, to that real base level of recreation, that's why you do it. And that's why, and if I can give that to more people, give them a sense that they can spend time with their kids in outdoor environments and not be left at home on the couch, that's it. That's where all that sports stuff, that's where it means the most to me. I mean, I love the competition, don't get me wrong. And I love like the envelope and getting crazy out there, but the baseline of it all really, and the important part of it, I think, as far as like adaptive, and for myself, and I think for most people, is that, it comes down to the simple things with it, right? Those little moments out there, and I think you guys would say it if you're out there with, eventually, with grandkids or, or little kids, and you just see that the small things, right? That's where it means the most, that you can actually get out there and do it.
Yeah. So, how many bikes you got?
Oh God, I got a lot of wheels in my life. Like spring, when it's time to pump them up, it's like, that's like, you're out there for an hour and a half. I mean, I have my original downhiller, which I just retired kind of. And that's why we call it Frankenbike, because it's been welded back in like every way, shape, form, and over the years, and every little shop here in the North Country where, somebody had to weld a new piece on or build a new A-arm. And I've been running that basically since 95, 96. Obviously we had to do a lot of different things to it to keep it going over the years, but I was able to get a grant through the Kelly Brush Foundation, and they helped me in getting a new one that has pedals, which that's really cool, because now I can go further in the woods, and also has an e-assist. So the whole e-assist thing is bringing a whole nother level to, I think, for a lot of us in sport. I mean, and that's the only, I'm really torn about this e-assist thing. So that's going to get on a whole nother topic, but because I love the struggle of my road bike. I mean, I absolutely love that, climbing a hill, getting down and gritty and working hard to get up it. But when you get into mountain biking, pedaling with your arms, you just can't be that efficient in the woods with it. Just can't do the same. You can't go out and ride with your friends. You can't have that social interaction. Like, we can't go on the same ride. You might as well just be walking next to me for how low down you have to gear. But having that little e-assist can give you that extra boost to be able to do a lot more with it. But, on my road bike, it's all me. So, yeah. And
I imagine you've ridden the Kank on your road bike.
I have, yeah. I've done that whole circuit from North Woodstock all the way up past Bretton Woods, Mount Washington Hotel, down to Conway, up over the Kank and back home. Yeah.
And there's water skiing in this too. Like, there's water skiing with the Eastern Adaptive Sports. I know you probably just go out water skiing. Yeah,
I mean, it's I love water skiing, and we have cognitive intellectual disabilities. We have physical disabilities. It's a great sport because you can take everybody. Yeah. And it's a lot of fun. It's one of those and it's also a sport that's hard for a lot of people to do on their own. It's nice to have a community, and the community down at Squam Lake is really supportive of it. And let's face it, they actually like being able to get together with a bunch of water skiers themselves, because most of the time you're just out boat with 2 or 3 people, and you don't get to meet the other water skiers in the community and on the lake. And this kind of lets them all come together and do it with a real purpose and meet each other, and also do it with a real good cause in mind as well. So, I mean, I love being able to water ski, and there's nothing better than being able to provide that for people.
Yeah. There's probably not anything that you would never say, no, we can't do this. It's just how to figure it out. Let's see if we can do it.
It is over the years. And I think of some of the, when we started playing with some wheelchair hiking in particular, one of the first ones was going up to the AMC huts along the Appalachian Trail that are up here in the White Mountains. And then they decided they were going to make them handicapped accessible. And people were kind of up in arms, like, why would they do that, 3-4 miles up in the woods at the top of Mount Lafayette or on Galehead and whatnot. And so got together with Northeast Passage out of UNH, and we designed some hiking wheelchairs, and we hiked to 5 or 6 of the different huts over the years and spent the night and just, kind of invented a sport, but the equipment didn't exist. But those are all places that I wanted to be at again, because I'd hiked Lafayette, for instance, 2 months before my injury. And I have a picture of me standing up there just, before that. And now I have a picture of me sitting at the top of that mountain. I have a picture of myself standing at the top of that mountain. And for me, when I got up there and sitting, I kind of wanted to really take all that in and what that was. And I went over to, Cliff's Edge, and I hung out there, and they all probably thought I was going to jump or something, but that was not the case. I just wanted to really kind of take it all in that, my life had come full circle, right? And I was going to do anything I wanted to in my life. I was just going to do it sitting down. You just had to take on the challenge and figure out the ways. And, it wasn't ever going to be the same again, right? It was team hiking. It was me with my friends, and it's kind of like a rickshaw on the front, and I'm pushing the wheels, and it's a hard journey, but it's worth it, and it's different, but you get there, right? Yeah. And that's kind of the message that I try to portray all the time about this stuff. Is the pathway isn't always easy, and it's not always written out there for you. You've got to be creative about it, but you can find ways to enjoy it and really be in it if you choose that.
So you were introduced or asked to meet someone, Cam Shaw Duran, and you guys did something pretty cool in your wheelchairs that I had never heard until I was thinking about the podcast with you. And it's pretty amazing to get in your wheelchairs and start heading up Mount Washington.
Yeah, that was one of the dumber decisions I think that we ever made. And it was all kind of around, I would say it was around New Hampshire Pride. There was a gentleman that had come up and tried to push up the Mount Washington Auto Road, and he had failed. And we kind of heard about it, and they were putting up this whole big thing about that he was coming back and he was going to attempt it again. I'm like, he was down from Pennsylvania your way, Angelo. Yeah. We can't let that Flatlander come up here and take that title from us. So we were like, and we're in great shape cycling all the time. So we decided we were going to head out. It was about a week before he was coming up, and we headed out 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning so that they couldn't really stop us. But I'd called up and asked, "Is it okay if we hike up the auto road?" And they said, "Yeah, just stay off to the side." Didn't tell them we were in wheelchairs, but they had they had Good Morning America and all these people that were coming up to film and things. So it ended up making them really mad, but it was a brutal thing. I wore holes in the sides of my legs just from the sides of the wheelchair being so far forward on my chest. I think, Cam and I both say that it took a lot of years, it seemed like, off our lives just from the stress that it put on our tendons and whatnot, and trying to push up that 8.5 miles at that grade. No, it was pretty brutal. And we didn't know what wheelchairs to bring. So, we were able to Cam was able to get to the top. The chair I had was a little bit heavier at the end. We switched kind of back and forth. I'm like, you need to keep going because there's this road and not let us stay here because it's private property at that point. So it kind of got to that. He was close enough, was able to get it, and he got that title. So it's fun to do things on Mount Washington all the time. I was able to hike up there in my sit ski and ski Tuckerman's Ravine too. So turning your chair into a hiking, you get up there with a group of friends. And when my friends get a call from me in sort of that late February, March, they worry about what it might be or what I'm asking them to do. So if I'm asking you to get on the end of a string, and working up the bowl of Tuckerman's Ravine, that can happen sometimes. But but that's a really cool place to be able to survive in, to ski in, and it's a great New England tradition that I feel fortunate to be one of the few to ever go up into that bowl as a sit skier and and do that. I made it about 3/4 of the way up, above like Lobster Claw and Hillman's Highway, done a bunch of different routes up there. Never been off the head wall, but gotten about 3/4 of the way up. It just gets too steep for the crew to keep working me up anymore after that. But I've had some really amazing experiences up there, and skiing out the Sherburne after like 2 feet of powder, and yeah, love it up there.
Yeah. So what's like the most challenging place you've skied? And like, have you been, I know you've been to Big Sky. Have you gone off the tram and some of that stuff? Or what's like the biggest view? Like, man, I did this.
I think, some of in the early days, I'll remember Peter Howard. We were at training for team tryouts one time. And that was some early, first time a sit skier ever been on the Eastern team, and, training for, to be on the national team. And and we did a sort of a summation of the week and what was amazing and what happened. I remember Peter Howard sitting around with everybody, and he goes, the coolest thing I saw all this week was Geoff Krill skiing off the Cirque Traverse up there. And the hardest part was actually probably getting out to the Cirque Traverse across the little spine to get out there. But, that was awesome to be able to ski out there. Haven't skied like the Big C at Big Sky or anything like that. Yeah. I mean, Tuckerman's Ravine, I think just because of the adventure of how hard it was to get there. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty cool. And they're having to dig a trench into the side of the hill to even like right you to like put you in there. I mean, that's pretty seriously steep stuff. But skiing up in all those places up there, always really enjoyed a ton. Those are kind of my favorite places in and around that. And then there's a couple of spots too when I was out at training. It was actually at this extreme skiing zone somewhere at Loveland, and we were with the team, and they brought me out there because that's where they're shooting this photography, and they're like, they got me out there like, I can't believe we just actually brought Geoff out here into what wasn't, there was a whole avalanche bluff with like giant, nasty ice at the bottom of it, and I had to like go sailing through it, and my suspension bottomed out. Robin Barnes thought I was dead. She's like, you lived it through it, but it was pretty crazy. But yeah. I know you never know what's going to happen, but there's a lot of cool places to get out there and ski, but I'm not into it I'm into it for a long time, I'm not going to be, it's going to be 52 years old, and I gotta be somewhat sensible about things,
So what is the next thing though you're going to inspire us with? And it doesn't have to be big mountain skiing, but I mean, what's the next adventure? What's something you're like, we need to figure out how to do this, or I really want to do this. I haven't done it yet, and I'm going to do it even though I'm in a wheelchair.
I don't know, from a sports level, I'd like to do some kind of a longer mountain bike trek. I think would be really cool to be able to do something like that. I've always kind of envisioned being able to maybe take a couple months and maybe ride across country with my kids or something like that, and my wife, and do the family thing and do something like that would be a really cool adventure that I've kind of envisioned. That just always sounds like that would be a ton of fun. Yeah. But, I mean, there's just so much out there, right? I mean, but on a personal, I'm really excited about just seeing the way that adaptive skiing is just becoming a part of the industry. That's like my big adventure right now, and just being out on the road and making sure that takes root. And just, I mean, for me, I've talked about it. It's the 100-year change. Yeah. And right now, that's like the passion. I think it brings it right back to where it should be. Adaptive was kind of put on a thing like, oh, that's really cool what they're doing over there. And they didn't really understand how it related to really good skiing and fundamentally what it was. And yeah, it's awesome. It gave people great experience. They didn't really understand the level it was going to raise to, right? You got like Trevor Kennison doing double backflips out in Vail, and, and all this crazy stuff. And you're seeing like the level that skiing is at. And I just love that it's all coming together. It kind of got on its little island for a while, but it's all just coming back to be just another part of the whole sport and the whole family that is. And I love seeing the way where PSIA-AASI is with this whole thing. And it's pretty cool. So for me, that's the big passion, the big adventure, and letting people see the value in that over the next few years, because that's where we're going to have some big wins.
Well, it's cool, man. And you do inspire me. And I love the ideas of creativity I see over at Loon when I chat with folks. And the biggest thing, Angela, I love because I know you probably haven't seen as many of the Loon folks, and because I'm here in New Hampshire, and they're always excited, man. They're always excited about what's going on, and Geoff's doing some creative things. So that's, I think, is what's so cool, Geoff, is how you can really put some energy into the staff, and they have fun, man. You can see them you should see Geoff's thing. I mean, when you first did that years ago and put the old snowmaking hoses up there, one of those first things you did with all the sand in it, they're like, dude, it works. Like, you got to come out and see, like, Geoff did this. You got the hoses, we filled them with sand, and they were so excited. But you could see the excitement of, like, we didn't just have to do the same thing. We were doing something that worked, and it was something creative. And that's, I know Angelo always loves that stuff. He loves when things are outside the box and makes people think and try something new. But thanks.
You have to have you guys come out, and we'll kind of do a little workshop on that, and get you familiarized with it. Maybe do something like this out on the hill. I'd love to be able to make that work at some point with you guys, because it's so much fun. I don't know. That's what I love being able to do out on the hill with my staff every single day. It's just that creative cool thing. And I loved hearing it. You know what? Because that was a big jump for me, jumping into the full able-bodied world like that. And I can remember even folks just thinking about, like, what's he going to teach me? I can remember one of my guys, and Rob set me up with a guy who had just, failed part of his level 3. And he was thinking, well, what's he going to be able to teach me about, And we went up on a green trail. He went down about 50 yards, and Ken, he turned around, and I said, you need to do this, 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 and this. And he's like, and he later on told me, he's like, you described everything that they told me was wrong in my exam, and I was just on a beginner trail. And, and the buy-in was there, and it just kind of has evolved in lots of different ways throughout the years on that. Is that, it's just being able to look at skiing, understand it. And it doesn't matter that you can't actually do it physically 100%. Great coaches don't always have to be, the ones that have to do that all the time, right?
That's awesome. But what do you got, Angelo?
No, I just want to say thanks, Coach, for coming on. It just completely impressive and inspirational, and just your creativity and your generosity and your depth of and breadth of what you see and understand. It's really impressive, and like with zero ego. Just like, that's the best thing about it. And I mean, do you realize how nonchalantly you said we kind of invented a sport when you were talking about hiking out to the huts? Like, I mean, it's groundbreaking, and I think it's your normal, but looking in from, able-bodied can be a little bit narrow-minded, and things you see as normal, I'm just like completely blown away. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for that perspective, Angela. That means a lot, and that, I think you're right. I mean, it's just, to me, that's survival, and just that's what I do to make my life fun and exciting, and do the things and not ever feeling like I'm being held back from all the goals that I ever wanted to accomplish. I wanted to live the life that I've been able to live. So sometimes you got to find the ways to be able to do that.
Many people, including me, would benefit from a little more of that in our mindsets.
Yeah. Yep. And hopefully some of the listeners will get that when they're struggling a little bit, because that's what Geoff said, man. If there's no struggle, there's no fun. Got to have a little struggle, and you got to work through it. And if they're struggling with a little wedge turn, that's not a big deal. There's ways to overcome it, and they all have to do is go watch you ski or see what you have to overcome. And I think it's awesome. And keep it up. I hope you'll come back. We'll chat some more. We can geek out some more on some tech stuff, because we love doing that. And maybe we'll chat after you come back from Interski. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, it's always great, some of the concepts you come home with and some of the things that you see while you're out there, But I'm cool. Really looking forward to getting out there with the team and bringing some great information back home to everybody. So
thanks, man. It's been a pleasure. And thanks for your time. And thanks everybody out there for listening. And thanks to our friends of the podcast. We want to thank Blizzard Technica for helping us out, and also Nick's Boot Fitting and Rollerblade. Hopefully we'll get on some rollerblades with Miles this summer and fall. All right, Angelo, and get ripping. That's one of the things we want to do this summer and fall. Yep. And hope everybody has a great rest of the season. But we got some more podcasts coming before all that snow disappears.